What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video. My name is Mo, and today I'm going to be talking about something different. So we usually talk about FPL and players and watch lists and wildcards, but there's a news today that, I thought it's to do with the Premier League and we play FPL. It might not have a direct impact on us today, but Newcastle's been taken over by a Saudi bid, 300 million. New owners should be coming into play. What does this mean for the Premier League? So we'll discuss all that today. But before we get into that, if you haven't liked the video so far, give it a like. And if you haven't subscribed to FPL Inkling, please hit that subscribe button. So a bit different today. We're going to go through a bit of news about football rather than, FPL itself. It's the international break. So let's talk about something different. Let's take your mind off the wild card, the stress, and everything that's going on in the background. So where did this all come from? So a couple of days ago, the news broke out that the Saudi takeover was given the clearance that ain't needed for it to officially take over the club itself. So Mike Ashley, over the last couple of years, has clearly said that if he was given the right offer for the club, he'd let him, let it be successful for it to go through. So what does this now mean for Newcastle? For me personally, I think, it's going to be a great opportunity for their fans to really celebrate. There's a bit of division, obviously, there always is. Some fans will talk about their heritage, the club itself. And then there's some fans who haven't seen any glory or anything from Newcastle where they can actually celebrate, obviously barring the Championship where they won it to come back into the Premier League. But otherwise, for a trophy, they've waited. I think in my lifetime, I haven't seen them lift a trophy. The closest I think they got was probably that Premier League between Manchester United and Newcastle, which kind of went down to the wire. But otherwise, Newcastle, I reckon this is the start of a new era, and it can mean something big for them. So who can we actually compare them to? What does this mean to Newcastle itself? So a lot of people are throwing about, they're going to become automatic favourites, they're going to compete with the big guns. I think in the long term, yes, I think there's going to be stages of their development. I think they're in a better position than Man City were, let's say 15 years ago. I think it was 2008, so 13 years ago when they got their takeover from Sheikh Mansour. So let me tell you the scale of the magnitude of what the takeover entails. So I've put the photo of St. Maximin on screen, and that's probably the smiles that the players are feeling at the moment who are playing there. And obviously the fans as well who are excited about the takeover. So Manchester City Sheikh Mansour net worth is around 23.2 billion in pounds. The Saudi takeover is 300 billion. I think it's 320, around that. So it shows obviously they're not going to put all their wealth into the football club, but if you compare that to the other ones or the other clubs such as Abramovich for Chelsea, Man City, Sheikh Mansour, that's a lot of investment that can happen. What does this mean? I mean, how will this compare in terms of what Newcastle can achieve? So because Mike Ashley hasn't spent the funds in previous years, he actually sets them up really well for the financial fair play, so they can actually go and spend the money what they need to. Now, will players overnight be attracted to Newcastle? There's always that question. But you've got to remember, when Man City paid the money out for Carlos Tevez, Craig Bellamy, Balotelli, Robinho, these kind of players, when they were just throwing money, so Robert Santa Cruz used to be a striker for Blackburn, if you guys are old enough to remember. They were literally throwing money at players for them to get them over to the club. They didn't win much at that point, but once they started winning, they brought in winners, they brought in the players who had the calibre. That's when the trophies started to come in. Now, in terms of an FPL perspective this season, that shouldn't change anything for you unless in January they bring in a lot of players into their squad. So let's just think about, what potentially could happen. What does this mean for Haaland? Could Haaland go to Newcastle? People could laugh at this suggestion, but if he's throwing the money at him, potentially could do. Harry Kane, he didn't get the move to Man City. Will Spurs be more, tempted to sell him to Newcastle for now because they're not an immediate threat, despite the money and challenges? But will Kane change his mindset of rather than going to City, he'd want to go to Newcastle? So, that means a lot for other players to potentially look at it as well. Could he do a Shearer? Could he go back and win the league at Newcastle? We'll just have to wait and see. I mean, what is really interesting about the takeover is they're going to also be building around surrounding areas. So a bit like Man City, they should be developing Newcastle as an area, because I know the stadium's in the city centre itself, which is a rarity for a football stadium. So there should be some real good development and prosperity for the people who live in that area. So potentially attracting players, with a budget should not be an issue. But let's compare it a bit to the Man City timescales, because a lot of people are saying within 3 years they'll win the league. I don't think we need to rush that quickly. I think they can be certainly challenging for the top four in 3 to 5 years. But winning the league could take potentially, I reckon, about in my opinion, anywhere between 5 to 10 years. So let me give an example of Man City. So September 2008 was their takeover. In August 2010, they brought the 3 players at that moment which kind of changed the club. Yaya Toure, David Silva and Mario Balotelli. Now, Balotelli, you can have your questions about him. At that time, he played really well for Man City in that season. That specific season, I'll tell you why that makes a difference, because in that same season when they brought them in 2010, in May 2011, they won their first trophy in their new era, which was the FA Cup. But then in July, that same year, once they won the FA Cup, they attracted Sergio Aguero. And 8-9 months later, in May, they lifted their first Premier League trophy. So you could see that's when the kind of whole perception of Manchester City changed. It took 2012. So that means it's 4 years. That took 4 years to win the trophy then. But realistically then, Man City, in terms of what they brought and stuff, I completely understood. But they weren't in... I would say they wasn't in so much of a difficult situation as Newcastle are at the moment. They've been a bit of a yo-yo club up and down the league. I think by then, they had obviously played previously in the Championship and lower leagues, but by 2008 they'd been in the top flight, and you could see there was going to be development around it, especially with the stadium as well. It made a huge difference. In July 2016 they signed Pep Guardiola, so you can see from 2008 to 2016 they had some great managers. They had Mancini, Pellegrini, Mark Hughes was there for a while. They had some really good managers during that span, but Pep actually came 8 years later, and they got to the Champions League final in 2021. So you can see 13 years after their takeover, they got to the Champions League final. So it's always not as easy as it looks. It could be a bit difficult. It could be a bit different for Newcastle. We just have to wait and see. What does this mean for the club? What does it mean for FPL? Could next season we all be sat here just going, do you know what? Mbappe, Newcastle, 12.5, 13 mil. Should we get him in? Get him in. Anything's possible, guys. Haaland, 12.5, 13 mil. Newcastle, get him in. You just never know. You don't know. Neymar could come over. These big marquee signings could potentially be in Newcastle. I think it's going to be great. It's another powerhouse in the league. What does this mean for other clubs such as Arsenal, Spurs, Manchester United? These are the kind of clubs that, they fight for the top 4, because I think the top 3 clubs at the moment, look, I'm saying this as a Manchester United fan. You've got Chelsea, Liverpool and Manchester City. I think that Chelsea and Manchester City will have the best fight. Liverpool may struggle this season because of the depth of their squads, but still then they're the best 3 in the league at the moment. Other than that, we'll just have to wait and see where Newcastle come in. I think it'll be baby steps. 5 to 10 years, I reckon they could potentially challenge. But the money is going to talk at the end of the day. So FPL next year, you'll probably see more Newcastle players in your squad than you've actually had during the last 5 years in one go. That'd be interesting to see. But do you know what? I've got to congratulate all the fans in Newcastle, and I hope it's a new era. I hope it goes well for them. I know this is a bit off topic from FPL, but do you know what? Let's have a bit of a light talk. I'm glad I'm not talking about wildcard stresses, and we can deal with that next week, and we've dealt with it pretty much this week as well. But this is a bit of a different story. It's nice to have a conversation around it. And you know what? I'm glad I made a video around this, because I'm pretty excited about this. I want to see how Newcastle play, because I remember being a youngster, I saw Newcastle play really, really well. It's just a shame that as time's progressed, since kind of like the early 2000s, they've lost their overall image, and they were really attacking. I remember when it used to be Shearer, Kluivert, these really, really big players in Newcastle itself. But best of luck to them. Let's see how it goes, and let's see who they're bringing. For now, I want you guys to have a good evening. Enjoy the rest of it. Take care and stay tuned for some more FPL content. I will be bringing you guys to you. Stay tuned, and we'll have a live Q&A as well soon.